I'm now joined by a professional who is going to help us, put the topic of today in perspective. I'm joined now by an economist in the person of Aliyu Audu. Thank you for coming on Business Daily today.
Thank you very much.
I'll just begin, with the reports we did see recently saying that Nigeria spent about $698.88 million on food imports in the first quarter of 2024. In my opinion, those are high numbers. And according to reports, this is a 40% increase compared to, the levels of food import in the year 2023. So I'll just begin by asking, what do you make of all of this? And what exactly would you say is the broader implication, the broader economic implication, importing food by 40% compared to 1 year ago?
Okay, I think first of all, we should not be importing food because we have enough farmland to be able to farm this food. So this is a hatchet approach. Now, we have enough farmland and there should be a lot of investment in agriculture. For the time being, importation of food, I believe the government wants to go into importation just to solve the issue at the current time. But in the long run, we should invest in agriculture because we have huge amount of agrarian land, enough to farm and export. We shouldn't be importing because this is the crisis that we're talking about. This is why we're having dollar going up, Nigerian dollar going up. The demand for dollar is very high. What are we using this dollar for? To import food. That is what is causing the crisis. Rather, we should take a different approach of investing in our farmers. Investing in our farmers, government should use, if farmers are, should give farmers price guarantee, meaning if you produce a certain amount, if you overproduce, the government should buy that over and put them in silos and save them for rainy days. That is what is done in different countries, in Brazil, in America and other countries. In that way, you're guaranteeing farmers an income. And then government now stores this excess production in silos for a rainy day. So this is where we need, government to intervene and work with the farmers. There are farmers that don't have they can't afford tractors. We need to go into proper mechanized agriculture. What we're doing now is subsistence farming, is peasant farming, and we have a growing population, a population of 200 million and above, so we need to get industrialized. We need to get into mechanical farming, and this is where we should be focusing on. Investment into farming is another issue. 2 years ago, due to the security situation, some people came to invest and do mechanized farming in Nigeria, but because of the security situation, they moved to Ghana. So what am I saying? We need to prepare the ground because we have enough agricultural land. We have no business importing food. That is what is a triple effect. Once you start importing food, you're now depreciating the naira and putting pressure on the foreign exchange. And then this leads to inflation, this leads to loss of job opportunities and crisis and protest and all that. So it's a trickle-down effect, and we need to stop this. We should invest where it is proper, and that is agriculture. Agriculture is the mainstay of the economy. The budget for agriculture, I'm afraid, is not enough. You're not budgeting enough for agriculture. Agriculture is such that garbage in, garbage out. So what you invest in agriculture is what you're expected to get. We have a comparative cost advantage in agriculture. We have good lands, we have rubber, we have granules, we have oil, we have very good agricultural land. Why are we not investing large-scale investment? The kind of investment we're doing in agriculture cannot get us to the promised land. We need to make large-scale investment in proper mechanized farming for us to be able to get this result. So talking about importation, if there's food shortage currently, importation is only a short-term solution. Now the long-term solution is investment in agriculture, large scale, and foreign investment, encouragement of foreign investors in agriculture. That is where we should be focusing on. And remember the days of the groundnut pyramids. Remember the days that we were importing groundnut oil, palm oil. Malaysia came to even borrow the seeds of palm oil from Nigeria. We are a blessed country, but we don't have it right. We need to get it right by investing in large scale agriculture. Our ministers and people in charge of the agricultural decks need to get down and dirty, need to get to the farms, need to get to the farmlands, need to encourage farmers. In Brazil, there's a system, there's a policy that the government introduced called the bullseye. The government brings the tractors and the farmers bring the land, and then they put it together and then start farming. So these are different policies that the government can introduce that can help Nigeria into large-scale agricultural production. What we're doing now is hatchet approach. That's because there's been years and years of not planning. This is the time we're supposed to be enjoying the fruits of our labor, but we have not been planning. So this is the time to start planning, and I believe the current government should look into that. Thank you very much.
You mentioned the end of the hunger protest that is currently ongoing in different parts of the nation. Nigerians are hungry. I mean, that has been re-echoed across the nation regarding the hunger that is unfortunately in the land. I would like for us to touch on immediate responses to the ongoing food crisis. Of course, there has been a 150-day window, for importation of maize, rice, and wheat. And according to the federal government, the Nigeria Customs Service is supposed to come up with an importation plan by next week. But before that even does happen, what would you recommend, should be done immediately to address the current, food inflation, high cost of living? Last I checked, food inflation was over 40%. That is high in my opinion. So let's hear from you now.
Okay, there's what we call the price control boards that the government can, and consumer protection boards that the government can work with and try, because some people take advantage of what is going on to be able to increase prices. So the government can step in and use price control boards to checkmate those ones. Also, the government can create subsidies. If the cost of farming is very high, if the cost of goods, food is very high, the government can buy them over and subsidize them to her citizens. That is another short-term approach that could alleviate poverty. I think last week I heard that about 20 trucks of rice have been distributed around every state in Nigeria, but I'm not sure if Nigerians are feeling the impact. So that is where the governors come in. 20 trucks of rice per state should be able to go a long way to alleviating some degree of hunger in states. And also I heard that a bag of rice that used to go for 70 naira is now going for 70,000 naira is now going for 40,000. So these are short-term measures of subsidy that the government can use right now, because of the time it takes to plant to cultivate agriculture. It takes a very long time. So it's impossible for the government to do anything else apart from subsidizing, buy it over from the farmers and subsidize it to the sellers at a cheaper rate so that they can now sell it out to Nigerians much cheaper in consultation with the price control boards, because some people try to take advantage. That is the short-term measure. Then the long-term measure is to start investing in large-scale agriculture. And I believe we can do it because we have countries like Israel growing plants on thin air. We don't have that. If you eat mango seed right now and you throw it at the back of your garden, it's going to germinate. That means we're blessed with agricultural land, but we're not taking advantage of this. Benue is a food basket of the nation. If you go to Benue during rainy season, Everywhere you go is orchards and orchards of orange trees, orchards of yam plantations. So what we should do is, during the excess season, that should be bought over and stored in silos and preserved by the Ministry of Agriculture in conjunction with farmers. And then during the scarcity period, this can be brought back and sold to people. This can go a long way to killing hunger. So we need to take advantage of guaranteeing prices for farmers, so that those that provide in excess, it can be kept and used later. So my solution is, the long-term solution is, government needs to work with the farmers. Thank you.
Well said. I have been speaking with Aliyu Audu, who is an economist. He's been speaking extensively to, how we can solve the current food crisis across the nation. But let's go on a short break. When we return, the conversation continues. To stay. And you're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And just before the break, we started a conversation on whether, if food importation can stabilize, the current price of food across the nation. And according to reports, Nigeria spent about $689.8 million on food imports in the first quarter of 2024, about 40% more than what was spent in the year 2023. But I have my guest here with me in the person of Aliyu Audu, who is an economist. Thank you again for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Before the break, we started a conversation, on the significance of the report that we had talked about, on food importation expenditure. And also we talked about, short-term measures, long-term measures. But now I'd like for us to look at, domestic production versus importation. There has been concerns that importation, could stifle the growth of, domestic production. Farmers are not, completely in support of the 150-day window that has been introduced by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. But what are your thoughts on that? Would it have, negative effect on our own local production?
Oh yes, definitely it will have a negative effect, because what is happening is that local importation is going to come, and obviously if it's being imported, it's going to be imported at a subsidized rate, which is going to come and compete with local production, and they're going to feel threatened, which is normal in the course of business. But in the long run, importation is not the best for us, because we should be protecting infant industries. We should be protecting local farmers. We should encourage local production. At some point, Nigeria was the second largest importer of rice in the world, second to the European Union, at some point, before the introduction of the rice program, Anchor Boras program, and that Nigeria now is producing rice. Local rice is competing with foreign rice now. Before, local rice had stones in it and you could not eat it, so it was sold very cheaply. But now, because Nigerian farmers have been encouraged through government programs, Anchor Boras program, we started producing rice. Now, Nigerian rice is as good as foreign rice. And what does that mean? It means we're creating jobs for Nigerian farmers. We're creating jobs for Nigerians. That's what it means. Anytime you talk about importation, what you're doing is you're taking the Nigerian jobs and giving it out to foreign countries. That's what you're doing when you import. Because whatever country you're importing from, they have to employ people to work for them. And you're buying their products. So you're encouraging them to employ their own people to work. Rather, we should be encouraging Nigerian farmers to produce, to employ more hands, and this will lead to employment. This will lead to killing of the hunger strike that we are currently facing. So while it's a short-term measure, you cannot fault it, because look at it, it's a new administration. you can't blame them for the policies of the last administration. So basically, they can do that. But after that, you have to look at long-term policies of, working with farmers, partnering with farmers to encourage them into large-scale, mechanized farming to feed Nigerians. We should not be at this point. We should be at the point of exporting. We have enough agricultural land to farm, to feed the whole of Nigerians, and to import to other countries. This is, I'm not saying this is by the president of African Development Bank. He said this, and that is the truth. So we should be looking inwards, not importing. But if Nigerians are hungry, the only mid-term solution, short-term solution, is to import and then feed Nigerians, but then we should start partnering with farmers for the long-term objective of making ourselves self-sufficient. If you go to Benue, if you go to other countries, you can see there's food everywhere. There is orchards and plantations of orange and yam everywhere in Benue. But why are we still hungry? That means there's a gap. There is a problem. So we need to cover those gaps, and we need to solve those problems. And that's where we are now. And that's why we're hungry.
You have, mentioned Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who is the president of the African Development Bank, where he has come out on social media to say he was, not for food importation, saying that, policies like that are not sustainable enough. But as we currently are speaking, there is the 150-day duty-free window that has already been introduced by the government. So I'd like for us to, talk to how these steps by the government does not adversely affect local production. What kind of collaborations or partnerships should the government be brewing with local farmers?
Well, they should guarantee them that their own, because for them to be able to import, that means there's a short in supply. The local farmers are not supplying enough. Now, so we should not be hearing that there's no patronage for local production from the local farmers. So I think what they want is a guarantee, a price guarantee that the government or there's going to be patronage for local farmers' production. Because it wouldn't make sense that you're bringing importing food from abroad, you're patronizing that, and then you're letting our local farmers to suffer.
But are the local farmers meeting up with demands?
Well, if they are not, my point, you see. They need that guarantee that their production will be bought and consumed before you move into importation. We don't want a situation whereby you are importing, because obviously we are not as refined as imported foods. We don't want a situation whereby they come to compete with local production, and it's not in every area. We have no business in. We should look at places like sugar. For example, now we produce very small amounts of sugar that we are consuming. Out of Burkina Faso produces sugar and exports sugar. Senegal, the same thing. We are importing sugar. We only produce about 10% of the sugar we consume. Why are other African countries producing and exporting, and we cannot produce? What is the reason? That is what we are talking about. We need partnerships with local farmers. We need to support local farmers. We need to enhance their production. They are not going to be 100%, but we must give them time to grow. We must protect local farmers. We must protect local industries. This is what is done in countries now that are self-sufficient. This was done in Chile back in the days. And today, Chile became a role model for agricultural production for other countries in the 80s and the 90s. So this is what we need to do. We need to look inwards and support local farmers. We have a lot of land. When farmers go to look for a partnership from either the CBN, the bureaucracy is too much. Go and bring this, go and bring this. You don't expect a local farmer to have all his documents in place. You should be able to work with what they have. So the bureaucracy seems somebody is not understanding what the local farmers need. You need to work with them. That's what I mean. You need to get down and dirty. You need to go to their farmlands. You need to get involved. And that is the only way we can resolve this issue. The government importing importation for 150 days is not where we should be. It's totally not good. But then what can we do when people are hungry? Nigerians are hungry. We need to feed Nigerians. But then as you're doing that, there should be long-term policies that is going to deal with food production. And that is working with farmers, collaboration with farmers. There should be open communication between farmers and government. If there are issues, farmers should have a forum they can complain. Currently, we don't have that. Now, the textile industry has been killed. A lot of industries have been discouraged because all we hear about is there's a fund for the textile manufacturers in the CBN, but nobody can access that. Why is that so? There's a fund for farmers in the CBN, the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme with the CBN. But how many farmers are able to access those facilities? That is where our issue is. You don't have to be a Dangote to come and access facilities. It should be for the less privileged farmers. Do we have such schemes in place? Without that, I'm afraid you can't deal with hunger. If you make everything very difficult for the normal Nigerian to get, you are not going to get anywhere. In Brazil, there was a policy called the bullseye policy that was introduced. And all you have to do is your farmland and be a farmer. And then the government will partner with you. You don't need to bring C of O to the CBN. You don't need to bring anything. Because I believe we should get down and dirty and work with the farmers, and we can produce more. Because clearly we have enough agricultural land to produce in Nigeria, feed Nigerians and export. Why is Senegal producing sugar and exporting sugar? Why is Burkina Faso? Why are all the African countries around us producing sugar? And Nigeria, the giant of Africa, we are not producing sugar. We are importing sugar. That is not where we should be. That is not right. There is clearly a gap, a miscommunication gap. There's clearly a production gap. And that is why we are suffering. And we need to eliminate this gap for Nigerians to be where we have to be. Nigeria, it's a blessed country, no doubt about it. Even in agriculture alone. Malaysia came to Nigeria to borrow our palm oil seed, and today Malaysia is one of the biggest producers of palm oil. We used to supply 20% of the world cocoa, and today we are nowhere. Rubber, sapele, remember back in the 80s, what's happening to us? So we need to get down and dirty. There is no more armchair agriculture, discussion. We need to get down and dirty. We need to get to the farmlands. We need to support local production. The governors, everybody needs to get down to help us grow the country.
I would like for us to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is insecurity. I mean, you saw the tweets we read on social media. Some of them said, they are unable to go to their farms due to issues around insecurity. I mean, that has been a recurring complaint. I do recall that even after the Anchor Borrowers program was introduced, most farmers were unable to pay back those loans. According to them, they were unable to, go to their farms and farm. That has been a conversation that I said has gone on for quite a number of years now, but not so much has changed in that regard. What would you recommend, towards addressing the issue of insecurity, so our farmers can, with all the right policies, if that is not tackled, we will still be having this conversation in years to come. So what are your recommendations, in addressing the issue of insecurity?
Yeah, I'm afraid the issue of insecurity is still reoccurring, and we'll call on the president and the security chiefs to do something about it, because there is nothing anybody can do if there's insecurity. Now, the president came up, I think, has established the Ministry of Livestock. I think that's a step in the right direction, because there has been the issue of clashes between the herdsmen and other Nigerians or other farmers. Now, if you come with the Ministry of Livestock, if the Ministry of Livestock is introduced, so that ministry will deal directly with the issues of herdsmen clashing with farmers. There will be animal husbandry, there will be ranches, there will be places that are set for animals to go and eat, and then there will not be crisis. There will be community sanitization with herdsmen and different communities, that there are places that are located for cattle rearing, for animal husbandry, and what have you. The creation of that ministry, I think, is a step in the right direction. And the ministry should, in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture, should work with the security agents to solve the security situation. I'm afraid the security agencies have more work to do on their hands, because especially in a place like Plateau State, we still have people going to other people's settlements and killing them, and discouraging farmers from going to the market. So that's the red spot, a red spot right there, a hot spot. And the government needs to work. The security agencies need to deploy their resources, because it's a triple effect, it's a multiplier effect. If the farmers are not going to the farm to farm, they are not producing food. If they are not producing food, people are hungry. The government needs to start importing. Then dollar goes up, then people are complaining, then there's more protest, then there's civil unrest, then prices of goods and services are up,
it's
then
like
inflation
a full circle at this point.
Multiplier effect. If you get one wrong, it trickles to other areas of the economy. So security is very, very important, and it needs to be dealt with. People need to be able to go out, farmers need to be able to go out to the farmers to farm. Plateau State is a beautiful state with a lot of agricultural land. You have the best of potatoes in Plateau State. You have the grand cereals that produce oil and what have you. We grew up knowing the grand cereal plant in Jos. It produces a lot. If you're coming out of Jos, you see a lot of farm produce. So Jos is a blessed state with agriculture, and we can't afford to allow it to fail. The security agencies has to go out there, talk to the people, continuous engagement and dialogue, community awareness. That is what we should be doing. Community awareness that, look, we are all Nigerians, we shouldn't be fighting, we are doing this to feed all of us, and everybody with the local traditional chiefs, the governor, the politicians, the House of Reps, the senators, go back to your state, engage your people, sit down with them. There's no need for war. Let's work together, let's produce. We are blessed. There's enough for everybody to eat if we sit down and work together. That is where we need involvement. You can't even leave it only to the security agencies alone. Being a representative, being a senator representing your constituency, being a House of Reps representing your constituency, you have the responsibility to sanitize your people. You have the responsibility to engage your people and talk to them. Well, we are all Nigerians. We can live together. We don't have to fight war. If anybody comes with trouble, these are the security agencies you should discuss with. Engage your people. You can't just sit in Abuja and be putting policies while your people don't even, there's a disconnect between your people and the people in Abuja. And that is where you are a senator. You are supposed to bridge the gap. You're supposed to be there to explain the policies you're enacting, the policies of the federal government to your people. You're supposed to bring the dividends of democracy to your people. They are supposed to, understand what is happening and to stop fighting. When I hear that there's fight going on in Jos, I'm sorry, I have to hold the senators and the House of, because you're not sanitizing your people enough. You have to be there working with the security agencies and ensure that there's peace. If there's war or there's any crisis in Jos, I believe the House of the National Assembly members should relocate back to their states to sanitize to their people. There should be road shows. You should have road shows talking to your people. We don't have to fight. Let's work together. let's, as leaders, we have a responsibility to bring our people together, not to be disconnected from our people. And that is what is bringing about this protest. So we need to work with Nigerians in order for things to be better. And I believe Nigerians are very understanding. If you go home, you talk to your people, you support your people, they're going to listen. So that's where we need to be. And that's where the House, you can't leave it to the security agencies alone. It has to, we're in a democratic system. We're not under a military regime. So the senators, the House of Rep, the governors have to bridge the gap between the government and the people. You cannot leave, you can't blame the president. The president can be everywhere. The president is one person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aliyu Audu there, speaking very passionately on, you know, the escalating food prices, which has been one of the major demands by Nigerians who have been on the street for the past 7 days. Thank you very much for all the insight you've given to us on the program today.
Thank you very much.
This is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Business Daily. But join the conversation on social media and let us hear what your thoughts are. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching and bye for now.